Traffic continues to be normal.
Alright, chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger roll, Atlantis.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight downside SC off. Bring in SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
All right, folks. We've got a little bit of an experimental special event today. John Galloway for NASA Spaceflight here. Let me know if you can hear me 5x5. You're not going to see me, but what you're going to see are up-close views of the Orion capsule that just returned from the Artemis I mission around the moon. I see lots of 5x5s in chat, and we are not kidding around. We've actually got access to the well deck of the USS Portland, the Navy ship that recovered the Artemis I Orion capsule after the splashdown. And that right there, that's not a mock-up, that's not a flight test article. That is the actual capsule that just returned from around the moon. Jack Beyer is out there in the field, has brought some of our mobile broadcast equipment onto the ship, and he's running around taking pictures. You should hear him on comms whenever he comes through here in a second. But that is the plan. We're going to be moving around. We can zoom in. You can see the scorching on the honeycombs on this thing. And we are also going to be answering some questions. Again, this is not a NASA feed. This is not something that's being piped to us or we're restreaming or anything like that. This is a camera that Jack has taken onto the Navy ship, the USS Portland, to get us live views of the Orion capsule from Artemis I. I'm not doing this myself today, though. I'm going to have some folks with me, including Mr. Chris Gebhardt. Let's talk real slow while he unmutes his microphone. Chris, how are you doing?
I am doing absolutely fine. And oh my gosh, like before we went live, when Jack zoomed in, I got so giddy being able to read the letters on the sides of the thermal protection system tiles. This is going to be a great stream. There's a lot to talk about here. Exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting day. Yeah.
Absolutely. We did, folks. We knew that Jack was going to go there. We're like, oh, we'll record some B-roll and we'll take some pictures or something. We took one of our broadcast packs and then we were testing it. And we're like, wait, it's working? Is it working? Wait, we've got good signal. Heck, this video looks great. Let's share it with everybody. That's what we're doing. Like I said, we're going to be doing some Q&A. And who better to do Artemis-related Q&A than NASA Spaceflight's Mr. Philip Sloss. Philip, we got you on comms as well?
I hope so. Can y'all hear me? This is pretty cool. This is pretty cool.
We've got you, Philip. Chat, let us know if you can hear Philip there. Of course, Philip is it says NASA Centers Editor. That's an interesting new title up there. Philip is our resident expert on everything, Artemis, SLS, all those sorts of things. Nobody has written more words on it than Mr. Philip here. In just a minute, Jack will be back. Jack is actually running around taking pictures from other angles. You may see Jack on that little gantry in the upper left-hand corner. Apparently he got permission to go up there and take pictures down from the top. I don't know if... Just look for the beard. If you see the beard or some bacon falling off the top up there, you'll know it's Jack. But let's go through that. Chris, we're going to be looking for questions, so tag us in chat, y'all. Who
Yes,
wants
indeed.
to talk about... I mean, I can talk about how crazy it is we have a live feed from here, but we should talk about something else.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is crazy we have a feed from here. This is incredible. I mean, because this is inside the well deck, right? Like, this is what they flooded Sunday when Orion came back as they were getting the capsule out of the water and doing the documentation of the heat shield and everything. And then, yeah, it's absolutely incredible that we have this shot. And thank you, Das, for working and setting this up because, yeah, I mean, this is historic. And we want to take your questions. Please tag us at NASA Spaceflight in chat so we can see those questions a lot more quickly. But everything, because this is incredible, right? I mean, Orion just came back from a 26-day distant retrograde orbit mission of the moon, an incredibly successful mission, we should say, too. The first time this heat shield, the first time this design of the heat shield actually came back from the moon, the first time they stressed Orion and its systems, because ideally, Orion's going to be certified for 21 days of fully powered up operations, because when it docks to the gateway, you can power it down, just like you power down Soyuz and you power down Dragons after they dock to the International Space Station. So the fact that they went almost a full week beyond what Orion will be asked to do in the European service module was really impressive. And, when it landed and when splashdown, Philip, I'm really curious to your thoughts on this too, because when this splashed down on Sunday and everything went very, very well in the entry sequence, and there's obviously a lot of analysis and stuff to go here, but it was hard not to walk away from Sunday with the overwhelming feeling that there really are no showstoppers to put in crew on Artemis II.
Yeah, it seems like it. We talked about this going into the launch, which seems like a bazillion years ago now, but we talked about how the Orion spacecraft and the SLS launch vehicle, this is a sort of a traditional design, and this is meant to be something much closer to a finished product than like we're seeing the type of development and design that they're doing on the Starship system down at Boca Chica. And so it's interesting because on the one hand, that intellectually this is a product that they're basically verifying the design of, but then on the other hand, it's still it's still stunning to just see it go so clean, so well. And so that it's an odd kind of dichotomy between intellectually that this is what they were hoping would happen, but it still kind of blows you away that it's like, wow, it went so well and so clean. So it's amazing.
It really did. I mean, it really did for a first flight. We talked a lot about, confidence in the overall engines of the launch vehicle because those had been around for 40 years, right? The RL-10 even longer than that. But the real crux of the test, right? The real places where, they were really looking to and stressing it and trying to find problems was Orion and the European service module. And to have it back is just... is incredible. Like you said, it's exactly what they had hoped for, but it's still mind-boggling that it all worked and
Right.
It worked incredibly well. And that's a lot of the questions that I'm seeing in here right now. But I want to start with a couple because there are some very obvious visual things on the top of this, Philip, that I want to talk with you about, because we're getting quite a few questions already about those balls, those red balls on top of Orion. And Musical Wolves has what are those 4 balls, not towers? So thank you for the NSF appropriate joke there. But what are we looking at here? The camera moved. I know, Jack.
Jack must be back.
Jack's back. Jack's listening. He's listening. Yes. So live zoom in. So ask your questions about what you want to see on the outside of Orion too. But anyway, Philip, what are these red balls?
Well, in fact, there's 5 of them. So we're seeing one of them is obscured behind the beach balls that we're looking at. So it's technically called the crew module uprighting system, and these are designed in case the capsule were to splash down and sort of stabilize upside down. So they have the two stable positions for the capsule. Stable 1 is upright, and that's what happened for this flight and the test flight back in 2014. And then stable 2 is basically upside down, which isn't so fun if you're inside for very long. And so these bags inflated, and I'm not even sure. It looked, just watching the splashdown video a few times, it looks like they inflate very quickly after they get the splashdown indication. It seemed like maybe inside of 30 seconds. And so the idea is, if the crew you want the crew module to be upright, it's just going to work better for everybody, I think, in terms of communications and everything, to have the top side up in the air versus submerged. So that's what the system. And those are, I believe they said that they use helium to inflate these, since they have to take it along with them.
Indeed, and Outdoorsman, I know that was your question there as well, but a follow-up question from Orbital Dusk, who's asking, so understanding why they inflate in the water, but why do they stay inflated? Why don't they deflate them? I almost said de-inflate, so welcome to how my brain's functioning today, everyone.
Right. I don't know why they don't. I guess it's possible that one of the things that you get out of this is if you leave them this way, you get to see how long they stay. They stay inflated. Like a balloon. You see people have seen and played with helium balloons for a long time, and that assuming that you don't let them go, they sort of tend to shrink after a while, and so maybe this is just a way of looking at how long they're going to stay functional.
Yes, indeed. So here's another question from Musical Wolves who says, "Does it look more toasty than the Apollo capsule did?" I don't know about that. I've seen some of the Apollo capsules at Kennedy and the Smithsonian and various museums, and they definitely are toasty on the outside, just like Apollo is, because they came in at almost the same velocities as one another, roughly 25,000 miles per hour there. So yeah, they really did get toasty.
Right, and
I think
if
we'll
you
have to-
actually, I'm sorry, go ahead, Doss.
Oh no, just ask Jack out loud to pan down to some toasty scorchings. We may have to get him back over near the camera. In just a minute here, we'll have Jack on comms, y'all. We will hear
good,
from
yes.
Jack because he is actually out there. So go ahead with the next question, though, Chris. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we are getting Jack on there, but Jack is running around getting other pictures, getting other things for us too. So yeah, when Jack is back, we will get the camera zoomed back out and look at some other toasty areas of Orion. But here's another good question. There we go. But here's another good question here asking from Maurice Walker, who is asking, did they already open the hatch and remove stuff? So actually, and that's a great zoom in because you can see the hatch right there on the right side of the screen there. So yeah, Philip, I don't believe they've been inside of it yet. I think that happens after they unload it, correct?
I'm not sure. That would actually be something that if Jack gets a chance to ask any questions, I know he's really busy, but if he gets a chance to ask anybody to see if they've tried to go inside the crew module yet, it is possible that they have not. If you look here, so we're looking at mostly looking at the back shell, but down at the bottom you can see these are the I don't know if they're exactly the same or if they're an evolved version of the space shuttle tiles on the top, and then on the bottom you can see where the texture changes abruptly. The heat shield is that ablative avcoat material, and the difference between the first flight in 2014 and this one is that the 2014 design used a honeycomb structure. It was the Apollo structure, a honeycomb structure with all these cells, and you would basically inject this avcoat material into I mean, I don't know how many, it could have been hundreds of thousands of cells. And what they did for this design is they changed it to a more of a internal structure, and then they bonded large blocks of the avcoat material to the outside of it. And it sort of feels like, if you've ever picked up this stuff before, they've showed me a sample or two of these, it looks and kind of feels like wood to me, but they did change the this, and this has just flown for the first time. So and then on the outside, on the back shell, you can see that was covered with this reflective foil tape. I think for electrostatic discharge reasons, to protect against that in space. And of course, that was not flown on the last flight, and you can see what reentry does to that foil tape. It's not needed once you get to reentry, and it tends to ablate off and burn off too. And you can see, so it's basically, I think they use that same type of tape on Apollo. The application was a little different.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Uh-oh.
Hey, Jack.
Jack's just jumping in
I
all
can
of a
hear
sudden.
you.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, sorry. I'm going to have to move here in just a minute. But holy cow! Like, look at this.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Look how zoom in. I can, like, oh my god. Like, wow. Just wow.
Yeah.
We're gonna have an alternate view here in a second once I start moving. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up and thank everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for watching and for all the support, so that we can do insanely cool stuff like this. Okay, bye. for now.
Okay.
So
Bye,
before
Jack.
he moves, just so you, as Chris G was saying, that you can see the hatch on the right, and then the window panels, so you can see the main windows in the crew module to the left there. So this is basically this was facing kind of the south, and you could, of course, you couldn't see it on the launch pad because it was inside the fairing, but. And you can see these scarfed reaction control system jets all around under below the window line and the hatch line there too. And so you can see kind of this you can see where the different back shell panels come together, those seams. And so I'm not sure where Jack's gonna have to relocate, but I was also going to say I'm kind of blown away that we're allowed to get this close to the crew module too, which is really cool.
I mean, this thing came back
It
from
really
the
is.
moon.
Yeah.
Like a couple days ago. Like it was around the moon a couple days ago. It was in space near the moon. Not like 2 months ago or a year ago or whatever. Like it just got back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Folks,
like this is what we saw descend on Sunday. It was awesome.
We are absolutely not going to ask Jack to write "wash me" in the charring with his fingertip. Like we're not going to do that.
Moon, moon, moon. I just gotta say moon, moon, moon.
He can chant moon. When Jack has to move, I think he's going to have to move to the other side of the well deck door, like to the outside. So it will take us just a minute, and we are going to lose the live feed. I mean, he's literally walking around a Navy ship, like an active Navy ship. They don't let you just take cameras wherever. Again, we did get permission to do this. This is a special thing where Jack actually, he didn't like sneak aboard and hide a camera or anything. He's got permission to be there, but he is going to have to move in just a second here, y'all. And we're not exactly how long that's going to take. Yeah, I think we're going to lose his feed right now, but it will be back from a different angle in just a few minutes. Let's go ahead and clear Jack's camera so he can get over moved. It looks like we may have launch highlights. Check it out. It's like an NSF video of the capsule on top of SLS at the Cape.
Has been initiated.
Yeah, so we're going to keep answering your overall questions here about the capsule and everything, but because Jack has to rearrange, we figured we would show you some of the highlights that were coming up from the mission, and why not start where it is. But we want to keep taking your questions, and I'm not going to forget those. So while the launch highlights continue to play, here, since we've got the launch, here's a good question, Philip, coming in from Jay Gunpla, who's asking, during the NASA official stream covering the splashdown on Sunday, they were saying that lunar orbit Artemis II in 2024 and Artemis III lunar landing in 2025. Are those dates accurate?
I guess it depends on how you look at it. I think, again, from the program standpoint, those are the dates that they have, and I think in a way, you have so many people working on those missions coming up, on the hardware, on the planning, that I think it isn't real productive inside the program to worry about that. You just have heads down. They have a lot of work to do to get to Artemis II and a lot of work to get to Artemis III. And so that gives those of us who are watching as armchair quarterbacks on the outside plenty of time to talk about that. So I think I would say, is 2024 realistic for Artemis II? I think it's to be determined, and you could say the same thing about 2025 for Artemis III. I think we're all hoping that we're going to get updates on that here probably in the next 3 to 6 months, based on reviewing results of this launch and then of the Orion performance that they just got back on Sunday.
Indeed. And let's see some other questions here too. So Maurice Walker, is Moonikin still seated inside? We do believe the Moonikin is still inside the capsule and everything, as it is back at the port of San Diego. And for those of you who are just joining us, this is a stream about the Orion capsule's return to San Diego, but Jack is our person on the ground and our live camera there, and on an active operational Navy ship, and they were moving between different locations. So we are showing some of our launch highlights from the Artemis I mission so far as we wait to get the camera view specifically of Orion and be able to zoom back in on some of those other areas. So if you are just joining us, we're still taking your questions on this, but showing some launch highlights first. And Philip, here's a good question. Is the capsule still powered on? I know I heard yesterday that there was a that they were starting to power down some of the systems, but what's the overall status, do we know, of the capsule?
Yeah, I don't know if we've. I don't know if we. I can take a look, but I do not know if they've left the spacecraft powered on. And it's going to be limited by the crew module has batteries, and of course it doesn't have any solar panels. Those were on the European service module. So, pardon me. I think it would be an issue of either the batteries run out or they'd have to plug them in and put it on shore power at some point if they needed to keep it powered up. So I'm not sure if they've been able to do that. I would assume at some point out there before too long after they got it in the well deck, they would have done whatever they needed, whatever the critical steps were, and then they would have powered the spacecraft down.
Gotcha.
Video ended. We're working on getting something else to show. Jack is walking off of the ship right now, y'all. Not allowed to show it, but Jack is actually walking across the gangplank off of the ship, and he's going to move out to the back of the ship and look into Orion on the well deck. So we'll get it from the other angle here shortly, and we're going to switch out lenses as well so we have a little bit more of a zoom. But Jack is still moving, and we are showing you a couple things in the meantime.
Yeah. And so speaking of in the meantime, continuing to take your questions about this and everything. And here's another good one from Maurice Walker, who's asking, did the service module solar wing cameras keep working after separation? I mean, the service module still would have had power. I imagine they had telemetry and communication with it up until it started to break up in the atmosphere. As to exactly what they were recording or what they could or what the bandwidth for transmission is after Orion separates, not really sure on that, to be honest, Philip.
Yeah.
They did have I'm pretty sure it was a test objective, which was since it's a wireless system, they were trying to image the heat shield in that, very short period post separation. And through the solar array cameras, either one or more of them. And so, there's a lot of video that was recorded on the spacecraft. And I know we were, one of the things we were speculating about, so just to back up, they've been recording since, before liftoff, so all the cameras onto storage onto the crew module. So one of the things we were speculating about was, do you want to go into the crew module and grab some of the data devices, like the dosimeters? Do you want to grab those off of? We're talking about Moonikins. Do you want to grab any of those data devices, or do you just leave them there? They're secured in the spacecraft or not? But there's a lot of data, and that was one of the things that they were going to try and capture was during separation, the heat shield.
Yeah. For those comparisons and everything, yeah, and it will be interesting to see like what might have been received. Sometimes you don't necessarily prioritize live telemetry. Philip, you were just saying, there's a lot of video that's sort of stored in different places too, which kind of goes to a question from the Foul Yeti, who's asking, is there plenty of nice 4K footage stored on cameras within the capsule? And if so, when do you think that we'll get footage from that in the mission? And I think part of that is just when they actually get into Orion, there's not a lot of evidence that they've gone into it yet. I know they do want to get some stuff out of it when it is on dock in San Diego before being shipped back to the Kennedy Space Center. And then some of the reuse equipment will actually be pulled once they get back to Kennedy. I'd imagine some of that might involve footage, right? Like high definition footage of the reentry that wasn't being transmitted through TDRS at that time. and maybe
Right.
some other mission footage too, because what's the tricky part of this is you only have a certain bandwidth to communicate up through TDRS, even when you are the capsule, like we see here as Orion was descending on Sunday. You still, even though you have TDRS priority, there's still only a specific bandwidth the antennas and the systems can handle. So part of the tricky balance is what's the data you have to transmit to TDRS, because if something goes wrong, you need data to do an investigation. And what is it? Well, that would be nice, but we don't need it, so we'll get it back afterward. And we sort of saw them doing that balance throughout the mission too, right, Philip?
Yeah, and I think so. Yeah, and all of this was being recorded on the spacecraft, which is, and even perhaps more importantly to the program, all of the development flight instrumentation data was recorded on the spacecraft, and so that's the only copy of the data, of that data specifically, that they have. I'm sure that they downlinked as much of that data as they could, but there were blackout periods. There were at least 2 blackout periods during reentry, and so they're recording, not just temperatures, but stress and strain, things like that they want to get from a structural standpoint too. So, and that data is the only place that data is on the crew module.
And real
Gotcha.
quick, y'all,
Yeah.
Jack is live from he's just outside the USS Portland. He was on the Portland before. We've almost got his camera back. We're just getting things set, but we are going to have that live view of Orion out in San Diego in just a second. So we're showing some replays of the splashdown. We did a launch earlier for now, but in just a few minutes, we're going to have Jack's live feedback. He just had to relocate, and we only had one camera out there today, which is fine with me. We had a camera like 10 feet away from Orion, which is awesome.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed, it is. And speaking of Orion, there's a good question. Rough Rider Show, James Juries is asking, are there any sizes or specs for the power and propulsion element or halo for the gateway? So Orion's future lunar space station that it will be tasked with servicing. Yes, so the halo, the habitation module, itself is 7 meters long by 4.4 meters in width. The power and propulsion element is a little bit different, but overall it's about a 9 metric ton piece of equipment that will provide the power and the propulsion, obviously, as the name says, for the overall gateway. And yeah, so we do have some of those specifications that are coming together, and those are, of course, set to launch as an integrated duo on a Falcon Heavy rocket. Another good question here from Nicholas Theus, who is asking, will they extract the crew on Artemis II on the well deck of the recovery ship, or will O'Brien be moved somewhere else for crew extraction ops? This is an absolutely great question. Oh, there's another
There
view.
we go.
Look at the charring. Oh my gosh.
So look, Jack was just, you see the guard walking on the left-hand side? That's where Jack was before, like right on the other side, a little stripy rope thing.
Yeah.
The guard walked in front of the camera, actually. And now he's I guess, exited the ship. Debarked from the ship is the right term for ships. And we're looking at it with better lighting. So we can look at this.
And that, okay, so this is what I want to talk about. Go back down, Jack. Go back down just a little bit to the base heat shield. So the base heat shield was a bunch of individual little blocks that they then attached together to form the entirety of the heat shield, very much how like the space shuttle would have tiles that all integrated together to form a heat shield. And this was a huge part of the design, so it made use of some of the avcoat, that the same type of ablator material that the Apollos utilized, and everything. So there was a lot of history and heritage with this heat shield, and the Orion heat shield for the engineering flight test in December of 2015 was one component, one singular component, and they realized the not so great elements of working with that and decided to switch the heat shield design over to this modular block design that you integrate together, and look at how it did. And you can hear Jack having a good time on the deck of that ship right now.
With Jack again.
same time.
Jack, we hear you laughing.
What'd you say?
There we go.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot.
He's talking to
I'm
you,
in
viewers.
LA.
He's talking to somebody else.
everywhere.
You can
Are you
see
on
a
the
little
phone,
bit of
Jack?
you can see a little bit of erosion on some
Dude,
of
we're gonna
those
mute Jack
Avco
again.
blocks. But I mean, again, I don't know whether that's normal or not.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm looking for a shot of. Okay, I'm gonna put this here. I don't know if we can pick this up or not. Just a shot of the Artemis II heat shield kind of in process.
Yeah. And two, I just want to say, Elias, I have not forgotten about the question we were answering. We will come back to that. I just wanted to I nerded out here for a moment on that heat
Yeah.
shield. Yeah,
It's
definitely.
interesting. It is interesting to see that, and again, it'll be interesting to see whether that's, whether I would, it's ablative, so it's supposed. I would assume it's
Right.
supposed to do some of that. But then you can see on this side of the spacecraft, you can see that all that tape that was put over the back shell tiles is gone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think we've got Jack back here. Some people had walked up to him, but Jack, do we have you back? I've unmuted you.
Yeah, can you hear me? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jack, can you hear Jack?
So these are this is what you were talking about earlier, Philip, right? The cells.
Right, and this is the Artemis II. This is just a shot of the Artemis II heat shield, and this is before they put the same kind of tape over it.
Question: Are the cells interlinked?
It doesn't look like it. You have gaps, and then they put gap filler in them. It's a lot like the shuttle tiles on the base heat shield.
Are there cells within cells interlinked?
I don't think so. It doesn't look like it.
I'm doing a Blade Runner joke. Ignore me.
Oh, okay. Sorry. But yeah, that's
well, actually, what you said there too
that.
about how those gap fillers, how they use like the sort of resin material too in portions of the heat shield was a huge part of the test for this. But I actually have a question for Jack, because I want to go back to I just want to go back to Jack, we're looking at it through photons that are being pushed across the internet, but a lot of people in chat want to know what are you seeing? What does this look like to the naked eye? What is impressing you or surprising you or drawing your eye about what it looks like?
I mean, right off the bat, thank you to NASA and the Navy and just everybody for letting us get up close and personal with Orion. I 100% did not expect that. So it's an absolute honor and a privilege to get to bring this stuff to you guys and get to be here myself and see this thing. I mean, like you were saying a few minutes ago, Das, this thing was around the moon days ago, which is wild. So yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I think, when you go see a capsule in a museum and you notice how battered and scorchy it is, 100% the same vibe from this Orion capsule. Not, of course, in a bad way, just in a, it's been places, it's done things. It's seen some stuff, including the moon.
But battle with space in the atmosphere,
Precisely, yeah. I mean, practically, it's done battle with physics itself. But really, it's wild. It's a beautiful, beautiful machine, and it has the evidence of the journey that it took embedded on it, and it's just, I mean, I could just keep blathering on. It's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. It's surreal to get to be this close to something that is a piece of history and just got done with the mission. I mean, the boat pulled in. They lowered the doors to the well deck. They let us on board. I mean, they told me they might have an opportunity for people to get on board. And we get here, and the first thing we do is immediately just get on board. I mean, that was just, I'm eternally grateful for the opportunity from NASA and the Navy, and working with you guys at NASASpaceflight, that we're able to do stuff like this is just the coolest thing. And I hope it doesn't sound like a broken record, but just once again, thank you so much to all of our members. Thank you to everybody doing the super chats and whatnot, because we absolutely could not do this stuff without you guys. It's surreal, and that we're broadcasting right now and bringing you these live views of something that was just around the moon is just, I mean, I could blather on and on. I'll let you guys go back to technical details, but
no. There's another question for you
first. That you want to see on the capsule. I can zoom into whatever you want to see.
Well, that's true, but we've got another question for you first, Jack.
Go for it.
Because this is one of the most interesting questions to me because it never gets asked, but spaceflight does elicit this. What does the capsule smell like when you got close to it?
Sorry, what was the question?
What does the capsule smell like after coming back through reentry? You were right next to it. Did it smell
I
like
mean,
anything?
to be honest, I was using the old sniffer, the Mark I sniffer. I could not. All I could really smell in the well deck is like a mix of like boat smell, which I guess
Boat
would be
smell.
mostly like fuel.
Boat smell, yeah.
And then also
gear oil, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then also ocean, because there's like some sediment and whatnot in like the gutters in the well deck. Like it's very obviously a used space. So I didn't actually smell any capsule goodness, but I'm not complaining. To get this close to a toasty marshmallow from around the moon is about as good as any space nerd could ask.
Fantastic.
That's cool.
Fantastic. Well, speaking of Orion's re-entry, because we are definitely looking at the battle scars of atmospheric re-entry on Orion here and the various portions of its heat shield. So we do have a good question here, and then we'll come back to the next one that we were answering right before we went to this. But we do have a good question here that's asking. Basically, what are the main benefits of the skip re-entry profile that Artemis I used versus the profiles they used on the Apollo returns?
I know. I think we got this question during the NSF Live, and so one of the things I neglected to mention on Sunday was it also reduces the G loads for the crew. And obviously also for the capsule, but mainly for the crew, to not do a sort of a ballistic reentry. You can pull quite a few. You could probably go into double-digit G loads if you do that, and so it reduces it. It doesn't just reduce the peak heat load on the heat shield, but it also reduces the G loads, the acceleration and deceleration loads on the crew. And the crew is coming back from, I think at some point in the future, we'll probably be looking at similar types of sorties that you see on the International Space Station, where these crews could be coming back from 6 months on the moon. So that's one of the reasons that they're doing this, is it reduces it allows them to range the splashdown point much farther than Apollo. I think from something like 1,000 nautical miles with the Apollo capsule, because it's the same shape, same aerodynamic shape. It does generate lift, and so this one the skip reentry allows them to go as much as 3,000 nautical miles. I think it was, not give or take, and so that gives them a lot more flexibility in terms of weather. And things like that. Weather would be a main issue, not just rain, but sea state and things, and that kind of thing. It gives them a lot more operational flexibility when once you've made that trans-Earth injection burn, and we call it the return-powered flyby on Orion. But once you make that burn, you're committed to re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, and you really can't turn around at that point. So. Those are some of the benefits of doing a skip reentry.
Gotcha. Folks, again, this is a live feed from one of our cameras. Jack Beyer has rolled out to San Diego today, and that is the actual Orion capsule that was just around the moon a couple days ago. We've been doing some gratuitous zooms on the heat shield and the scorching and that sort of stuff. They still have that upright system, the inflatable helium bags or balloons, balls, whatever you want to call them, up on top of it. You'll see the guards on the ship marching around. That is still on the USS Portland right now. And we are able to roll out and do this sort of stuff because y'all keep showing up and you keep supporting us. There's a couple super chats over here that have been sitting for a little bit. Rough Rider Show, thank you so much. I think we answered that a little bit more. They haven't opened up the hatch yet, but I think they're going to roll it off the ship and get it into a different environment before they start cracking it open, right, Philip?
Yeah, and I think we're still trying to find out. Whether they've actually ingressed the crew module or not
Gotcha.
to get anything.
No
Yes,
official word on that yet, huh?
yeah, and it was a little bit kind of up in the air on Sunday on the broadcast. I know talking with Lockheed Martin, there are things that they would like to get out of there, but it sounded like the hatch might not be open until they get back to Kennedy. So one of those things where it's probably up in the air and they'll decide what to do when and if they have time on the dock at San Diego.
Yeah, you gotta let the cookies cool before you like break right into them. If you go too soon, they're all gooey
Right.
and stuff. I mean, they're good that way, but.
Right.
Anyways, the Rough Rider Show, thank you so much for the $9.99. Like, we're able to do these sorts of things because of y'all's support. Every little bit helps us be ready for stuff. We had no clue. This wasn't like a big, okay, now a week in advance, we're going to test, and we have a script, and we have a plan, and here's a camera's going to be here, and then here, and there's $5 million worth of equipment involved. This was literally Jack being prepared. He had his camera, he had our broadcast pack. Our team was standing by, and when we saw we had these views, and we saw we had a good stable signal from inside the literal warship, we decided that we would go live and share this with you. Some Freak, thank you as well for the support. We had Dougal coming through with some gifted memberships, gifting 5 Red Team memberships there. Dougal, thank you so much. If you got one of those gifts, you might say thanks in chat. I think it gives you a button you can click on if you've got a gifted membership. But Dougal, thank you so much for sharing some of our behind-the-scenes content with people. Pauline Brock says, thank you for this amazing stream from Canada. It looks like, Pauline, thank you for being here on this crazy stream or amazing stream. Again, we didn't know if it was going to work or not. This was just one of those situations where, preparation meets luck meets NASA PAO letting us on the ship. And we were able to bring you the live views of the capsule. Then we've got one more here. P and what? There we go. Did some more gifted memberships, gifted another 5 Red Team memberships. If you have checked out our membership program, we've got like a Discord for members. We have behind the scenes things that you can see, like Jack cooking bacon and stuff like that. We've got some early access things where you can see photos and things that come in from Starbase or other places before they're actually shown. And sometimes, on occasion, like say the signal wasn't really that stable, or we might have had some sort of little hiccups, or it was only a few minutes, we may have done this as a member stream so that only members could see it. Sometimes we do have to make the call like, ooh, wow, that's really not something we want to send out 600,000 notifications on, but we still want to share it with people. And every now and then, we did like a little impromptu Q&A at Johnson Space Center a couple months back, and we did that as a member stream. So if you join the membership program, you get all those different things, or people that get gifts from other people get an opportunity to get those as well. But across the board, thank y'all so much. The super chats and the membership program are the reason that we can do things like this. It costs money to have a pack ready to go. It costs money for Jack to get down there, and we are able to do streams like this because y'all keep showing up. So thank you, the viewers, for making this possible. Whew. I know that there's a lot of discussion about the heat tiles, like how charred it is. Is that like a chunk missing on the bottom front? I mean, it's right there on the screen. We're showing it to people, so we might as well talk about it. I don't know if we can get an official answer on that in short order, but I guarantee you there will be official questions being asked, emails sent, and that sort of thing. I'm not sure.
Looks fine to me. Looks fine.
Yeah, it's like it looks fine. I'd ride it.
I'd ride it. Yeah, send me up. Let's go. Let's do this.
Jack may have an opportunity later to actually ask an expert for like an answer on what their initial assessment of the heat shield is, but those experts are not available right now. So we will work on getting some actual information straight from the NASA horse's mouth, I guess, about exactly how that heat shield performed, right?
Right, and I think I see Scott Manley in the chat, and he's
Scott?
That's another thing he's mentioned is not just that the spacecraft was in the water for quite a bit of time, but if that was the impact side to the water, that also could you could knock some of that stuff off, perhaps. due to the water impact, or it could be something that happened during reentry. But at this point, again, it'd be good to hear from Jack after he talks to an expert.
That's the whole deal here, is that they're going to look at that heat shield, they're going to inspect
Yeah.
it, and they're going to see exactly how it performed when it's back in a nice controlled environment, because they sent it around the moon. Part of the entire reason for the Artemis I mission was sending this crew-rated capsule on this trajectory around the moon for multiple days, and then bringing it all the way back down safely. They have ground truth, space truth, actual truth. Like, this is flown hardware that they can inspect and see exactly how the system performed.
And this is, we don't even really know how big of a deal this is. It might not. This might be expected, and we're only looking at one part of the base heat shield here. So,
Maybe I just have too much faith in the system, but I feel like if it was anything serious, we'd probably know about it by now. But rest assured, as soon as I can ask some of the experts they have around, I will ask and get an answer for everyone. But for now, they're doing like some sort of event on the back of the ship for the crew and assembled folks. So that's why they had us move off, and that's where the experts went for the time being. But that is not going to be forever. So as soon as I can ask somebody, I certainly will.
Right, and it looks. I mean, the tiles certainly look in really good shape. It looks. Actually look cleaner. I guess they don't have to put waterproofing. They don't have to inject waterproofing into them like they did with the orbiters, because the heat shield is not exposed out on the launch pad. But in terms of, I'm not sure we have really a good sort of baseline to compare this to. We don't really know, and maybe some of the experts had some idea about, some predictions about what the heat shield would look like.
I'm looking at ones. I'm going to throw it up there. This, Patrick, I'm going to put this in our control center for you. But for a comparison of how the heat shield from the EFT-1 Orion flight looked after a return from a lunar velocity return, where they basically used a Delta cryogenic second stage on a Delta IV rocket to simulate lunar return velocities. And one thing to bear in mind in the comparison between these photos, you can definitely see, portions of it are chunked out in different places and things like that. But one thing to remember here is the one for EFT-1 was a singular heat shield design, whereas the one for Artemis I was a modular design in block form that was then tessellated together, basically.
Yeah. You can really see the difference there. Like, you can see the lines almost like they put it together like Lego versus one big monolithic design. So you can't really compare that heat shield with this heat shield, because they're two different designs, right?
Well, but you can get some sort of an idea of chunking and pot marking to some extent, and some idea of wear and tear. But yeah, I mean, definitely there was going to be different flows. There was definitely going to be different things, and also they came in at different. They came in doing different trajectories and doing different entries as well, right? Where they were rolling differently. So what Philip was saying about exactly how it came in is very important, and also to how it hit the water. Because like Philip was saying, if that happened to be the side that hit the water, well, that could have been impact related and not entry related in that regard. But keeping going with the questions here, this was a good question too, that we were starting to answer before we got this particular view of Orion, from Elias, who was asking, from Nicholas, who was asking, will they extract the crew of Artemis II on the well deck of the recovery ship, or move Orion somewhere else for crew extraction ops? And this was a very interesting question, because it came up during the splashdown on Sunday, and basically what Shannon Walker, an astronaut who was on the deck of the recovery ship for this and was there specifically monitoring how they would work with crew, in this regard, said that they haven't honestly decided yet which option they're going to go with. If they're going to either remove them from the capsule while the capsule's still in the water and use helicopters and winches and various recovery baskets to get the crew out and onto the ship to basically get them out of the capsule as quickly as possible, or if they will get into the well deck first and then extract the crew. The astronaut office, she said, is very much leaning toward get them out as quickly as possible because your body's readaptation to gravity after several weeks or months in space, it makes you, obviously affects how you can operate, so getting them out of the capsule quicker is better in that regard. And also, the capsules are obviously airtight and safe, but emergencies can happen and getting crew out quickly would be a priority, so the astronaut office would like them out as quickly as possible. Operationally, they might have to work with what the recovery assets are capable of doing and what might be best overall for everyone. So that's sort of the answer to your question. Right now it's a they don't know, but it would either be in the water, in the ocean, or in the well deck of the ship. They wouldn't hook it up to a helicopter and fly it to San Diego or something like that.
Yeah.
Michael indicating that where everything comes, when they open the hatch is sort of kind of up in the air and everything. So thank you for that too. They did mention Kennedy for getting some of the avionics and stuff out, but we'll see where they end up doing that. Mike Pennington, thank you so much for the $5 super chat and support. Much appreciated. 250 by the park. Also, thank you so much for the support, saying amazing footage of the recent Falcon 9 landing. Do you have any plans to increase video bitrate? Images look somewhat compressed. We're always looking for ways to that we can bring you higher res stuff, definitely in there. And then B saying thank you all for the amazing stream, and thanks Jack for the incredible views. Thank you very much for the support. That honestly means a lot to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can't say enough. Like, every now and then just a miraculous thing happens and we have this crazy live view of like an aborted test flight or something going on, like, or access like this, and we're only able to do that because we maintain a state of readiness with your support. Right. Basically, we pay for data points. So
somebody must be making a lot of bacon over off to the side here.
Yeah, right.
I was gonna say that's not Orion.
Yeah.
Did somebody say bacon?
Somebody said bacon. Is that what the
what's
smoke
cooking?
is, Jack,
what's cooking
like
out there, Jack?
Ship
Oh,
exhaust?
here. I'll show you. I'll show you. Stand by.
Truck?
You mean
Hang on,
it's
we're gonna see
not
what the
bacon?
smoke
Oh
is.
man.
Oh, it's a dirty old tug or
Oh,
something.
it's a tug.
They're moving a dockside crane.
Crane. Wow.
All right, back to Orion.
So it's
Yeah,
not
thank you.
bacon. Oh well.
That
But
thing is out of the shot. Well, Chris, I am going to have to step away. I actually have a little bit of a pre-technical check meeting for our show with the Intrepid Museum on Sunday, and you would never guess what we're going to talk about on Sunday.
Cheese.
No, not cheese.
Oh.
We're definitely not talking about cheese. Y'all, on Sunday, we are actually going to be talking about the Artemis I mission with someone from Lockheed Martin. We have a special guest joining us doing some live Q&A with our museum show, Astro Live. Barry Bonsack is going to be joining us. He's from the manufacturing production, or he is the manufacturing production scheduler for the Orion spacecraft. He'll be answering our live questions this Sunday, December 18th at 3 p.m. Eastern, and it's free, open to all ages. I mean, that's what the museum tweets out. That's where that image is from. So, of course, it's free and open to all ages. It's going to be right here on the NASA Spaceflight channel, so make sure you don't miss us on Sunday. But I need to hop off so I can go and meet with Barry and make sure that his lighting and microphone and everything is good in advance of us watching his spacecraft here. Do the things that it's doing on the well deck. But I am going to have to go ahead and hop off here. I will leave you in Chris's capable hands. Philip's going to be here as well, and I think we may have one more voice joining us.
I think we do too, right? Mr. Nick Ansuini, how's it going?
I am doing very well. saying hello to you guys from the base of the stars in South Texas. I'm looking at some what are those? 5 red or orange bouncy balls sitting on top of a toasted marshmallow. What is this madness?
Correct. Correct. All that's all correct. Yes. No.
So you can see the 5th one just barely behind the very left, kind of in between the first and second one from left to right. You can see the one behind it. So that's all 5 of them.
That's so cool. Wow. What an amazing view.
It really is. I mean, it's just absolutely bonkers that you're able to get this close to a spacecraft that has literally just returned from the moon. I mean,
Not just a museum. Like, I've been to plenty of museums where there are toasty marshmallows floating around, but like, this just got back. It's not even off the boat yet, guys. Wow. This is so cool.
Right.
I know, not even fresh off the boat yet in San Diego for Orion just yet. But there are some there are some other questions that we've got here that are coming in from folks who are watching. Thank you so much. And if you are just joining us, this is our live coverage. Jack rolled out. This is not a NASA stream being pushed to us. This is Jack's own camera. And NASASpaceflight's own camera that Jack brought out there and everything for this event. So thank you very much to Jack for rolling out today and for bringing us these absolutely awesome views of the toasty Orion. You're not, but thank you, Jack.
Oh, my mic's hot. Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Jack. How's it going?
It's going great.
Especially since you're not in whoever's way you were talking to.
Precisely.
Exactly. So we do have some questions that are coming in here. But yeah, Nick, I want to first get your views on this because, we talked with Philip about his reaction to seeing Orion land. On Sunday, we talked about mine and sort of what that meant. But I'm very curious to you like me, like this is the first time you saw a spaceship that's designed to carry humans to another place in the solar system come back and land. What was that like for you?
Oh my goodness. It is so exciting to be living in the times that we're living in right now. Like, sometimes I just wake up and I just have to pinch myself that, like, not only are we going back to the moon or going back to stay, and it's happening right now in front of us. And that's what Artemis I was all about. And it's so cool to see this mission. I guess it's completed now. At what point is the mission completed? Like, is this completed? Can I say that? Is it
completed?
Yeah. Have they completed Artemis I yet? Or is there is there an official moment where Bill Nelson gets up there and says, Artemis I is complete?
Well, it's not complete yet. I can tell you that.
Okay, good.
That's a really great segue to some of the other stuff that's coming here, because we do have a lot of different questions that are coming in. Elias is asking, after they remove elements needed for Artemis II, do we know if this capsule will be sent to a museum or not? I would assume it will wind up somewhere in a museum. Which one, I don't think they have determined, but this is how this usually goes. The Smithsonian Air and Space Museum gets right of first refusal. So this one will probably end up in the Smithsonian. They might even swap out because sometimes even what they do not have the EFT one. But if they did, sometimes they even swap them out for different ones. But I would imagine this one would end up at the Smithsonian for that one. But this is also opening up other questions, which is so Ogon is asking, can we go into what is next for this Orion? I understand it's going to KSC soon for Artemis II stuff, but I'm not sure how it will get there or if there's other stuff they do along the way or after. So, Philip, what is on tap for this particular capsule after that? And everyone, we're gonna Jack is just doing a quick battery swap. We're gonna be back with live views from Orion here momentarily. So we're just showing you where its journey began at the vehicle assembly building momentarily as Jack swaps that battery. But Philip, what about the answer to this question about what's next for this particular Orion, which goes back to Nick's question of Artemis I not technically quite done yet?
All right. Well, but it was actually kind of fortunate for a second there to get a shot from Kennedy Space Center because that's where it's headed next. I believe it's going to be it's not a UPS shipment, but it is going It is going ground back to Kennedy Space Center relatively soon, I would imagine, because they do want to get, as we've been talking about, and I believe you can actually see them. So one of the set of electronics components that they're going to take off of this crew module are the phased array communications antennas, and those are actually, I'm not sure if they're flush with those sort of darker black boxes or if they're right underneath those, but I believe that some of the phased array antennas are in those locations around the circumference of the crew module. Some of the other things they'll be taking out are inertial measurement units. And I think they also said GPS receivers will be taken out of this. And as Chris was writing in one of the several stories he's published in the last several days, it's I think they're budgeting about a 60-day refurbishment and retest period for all of those components before they would. And obviously, we're hoping that they all pass their retests, and then they would be ready to be installed into the Artemis II crew module. And so,
Gotcha.
And then, where it's going to be going specifically, the spacecraft's going to be taken to the multi-purpose processing facility, which is in the KSC industrial area near the headquarters building. And there are other famous buildings there. The operations and checkout building, where the crew quarters is also in that area. And because the spacecraft still has residual. It uses hydrazine. It uses hydrazine as a monopropellant. The crew module does for maneuvering and attitude control. And so, if you saw that, you saw the rolling to keep to maintain control of the lift vector for the spacecraft during entry. That's being done with those jets with hydrazine. Well, that's a very toxic material, and so it's going to go into the MPPF in part to have all of that offloaded, all the residual propellant offloaded, and so that it can be basically safe for more people to access it, and then also for all of the post-flight processing that they'll do. One of the very first things that they're going to do, though, is they're going to, even before they offload the propellant, is to get the components they need for the Artemis II crew module. That's like one of the very highest priorities when they get it positioned back in the MPPF at Kennedy. And then after it completes all of the deservicing in the MPPF, then it will go back to the main Orion manufacturing and processing area, which is also in the operations and checkout building at Kennedy Space Center. And they'll do, I think, a little bit more post-flight work on it. I'm not sure if that's where they will actually detach the heat shield physically from the crew module, or whether that would be in the MPPF. Those are the kinds of things that they're going to do while it's still at Kennedy. It'd also be kind of cool for them to get a group shot, because I think at that point, because it'll be next year, they will have large components of the first of Artemis 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the ONC building at Kennedy, because the Artemis II vehicles there right now, the Artemis III crew modules there right now, and they're shipping the Artemis IV crew module structure and other, I think, also crew module adapter structure. So it'd be kind of cool if they got a group shot of that while it was still in there. And then eventually it's going to be used as an environmental test article. And I believe it's going to be headed back up to Plumbrook Station in Ohio, where the entire crew service module went to do environmental testing before the flight. So it's going to be used as a test article again. So it's been a test article for a flight test that it just completed, and it's going to continue to be used for that in preparation for Artemis II, which is where NASA will certify that this is a human-rated spacecraft, and that test flight Artemis II is part of that, certifying that this is their human spacecraft for Moon and Mars.
Yeah. Very good. So yes, definitely several roads ahead for this particular capsule, you might say, in terms of continuing even now that it's back to do some
Right.
environmental testing and gift some of its avionics, like you were saying there, to the next programs. But yeah, definitely several roads still left for this capsule before you could consider it done with its operations. Definitely.
Right. And then at some point it will
Yeah.
go to a museum, I imagine.
Yes, indeed. And then that also brings us to tech controls question, which is, will this particular capsule be reused? No, and neither will the one on Artemis II in terms of reflying. The first capsule that is destined for reuse is actually the one for Artemis III, the currently scheduled mission that will return humans to the surface of the moon. That is the first capsule destined for eventual reuse per the current plan. Dougal is asking us, how did the CubeSats fare on this mission? A lot of them not so well. A lot of them did get bit by the long delays and the battery drains. Some of them, a lot of them were low-cost Pathfinders, so if they didn't work, it wasn't a large issue. Some of them, some CubeSats are literally like, will it work? In some regards, so they're low-cost ways of testing different technologies. Some of them did have communications issues. I know, talking with Lockheed Martin, that Loon IR did talk back to Earth at first, but then they lost communication with it shortly thereafter, and that seemed to be a recurring theme for a lot of the CubeSats on this mission. But one CubeSat in particular, Lunar Flashlight, which missed the deadline for Artemis I, actually hitched a ride to the moon last weekend with Hakuto R's launch on a Falcon 9, and NASA did confirm that that particular CubeSat, which is part of the Artemis program, but not launched on Artemis 1, is happy and healthy and on its way for its 4-month cruise to the moon. So that one is doing well, but unfortunately did not launch with Artemis in that regard. But here's another good question that we've got. Do we know when we will have the radiation exposure information? Thanks again for a great stream. I think some of that is actually on the dosimeters in the capsule and the radiation patches that the Moonikins were wearing, right? So some of those things will be pulled out once they go into the capsule here, likely when it's back at Kennedy.
Right. I believe that's correct.
Gotcha.
I still can't believe I'm just standing here 30 feet from this thing. It's insane. And I was 5 feet from it earlier, which is just even more insane. Holy cow.
Alrighty, and indeed, and with Orion back in time for the holidays, I know a lot of people are going to be happy about that, getting to spend time with their family and friends at the end of the year and celebrate an absolutely incredible mission. And if you would like to help celebrate the year of spaceflight as well, we have various pieces of holiday merch, including SLS merch, which is germane to to Orion's return here, but also definitely have our line of exciting holiday merch. That Christmas sweater, especially the calendars that we've got here, the two different calendars that we've got to celebrate your year in spaceflight. We have a Starbase specific calendar and a everywhere else specific calendar as well. Those calendars sell individually for $40, or you can combine them 2 for $60. A great deal there, and the calendars do come with free shipping. So if you want to have that in time for the new year, order away. And also for our holiday line of merchandise, if you haven't already, do check out this awesome design from Pauline Acklin. There's so many different little Easter eggs and everything in there. And we did remember our warmer climate friends for this time of year. So you can get the design in t-shirt and mug form as well. So do order that. Please do pay attention when you are ordering to the shipping dates. Some areas it is getting closer to the holidays, so do pay attention, please, when ordering to those shipping dates to ensure that you will get it before the holidays, or at least to know when it is scheduled to arrive. But definitely check that out. And then we're going to finish up a couple of questions here. Vesperian, thank you so much for becoming a Capcom member. Wow, thank you so much. That means you loved our you absolutely love our voices and our banter and want to keep that in your life 24/7, because Capcom and above gets you access to our wonderful NSF Discord, which is a place where you can come hang out with like-minded nerds and have a fun time discussing everything space flight related. So thank you very much for that ongoing support, and do look for that invite. It can take a little while for YouTube to trigger the invite to you, so do look for that invite to the Discord. Ground umbilical carrier plate. I see what you did there with that name. What would it mean for SLS and Orion if Dear Moon flies before Artemis II? Well, I think Starship's got a long way to go before Dear Moon happens, personally. There's a lot that needs to occur there. Politically, what would it mean if it happened beforehand? I think that's a very fascinating question. Philip, Nick, you want to take that?
I'll take it.
Oh,
Nick,
yeah.
what do you think? Why don't you
Yeah.
why don't you go for it?
Well, I mean, again, as Chris said, there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen to Starship before it can even get to the point that Artemis I is, which is a around the moon uncrewed test flight of a crew-rated vehicle. Starship is nowhere near crew-rated, nowhere near TLI rated, nowhere near orbital. Hopefully, we're near orbital. Put it that way. But it's not ready, and the idea that Dear Moon could happen before Artemis II, I don't know. I have some doubts about that, but I guess it could happen. I mean, who knows? The future's the future. As far as what that means politically, though, I don't really know exactly what that would mean. I mean, imagine SpaceX is moving as fast as they can, and I'd imagine the Artemis team's moving as fast as they can as well. So I don't really think there's too much competition there.
Right.
And I think it would be a good. I think it would be for NASA, from NASA's standpoint, it would be a good problem to have. And if you want to call it a problem, I'm not sure you do. I think specifically for Artemis II, I don't know that it would have any direct impact on it. I would be stunned if they didn't fly it regardless of when Dear Moon flies. I think the political aspect of it would be more of a end of the decade kind of thing, early next decade thing. But I mean, if you think about Artemis III, they don't just need the Orion and the SLS, they need Starship. Starship is an integral part of that mission. And so, you could also look at it as a huge positive as well, because, I don't think Dear Moon is going to be sending a ship down to this. Is it going to be a landing mission? Or is it going to be an orbital mission?
It's not even lunar orbital. It's a free return.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that would, at the very least, that would demonstrate a huge part of the concept of operations for Starship for Artemis III. And so, I mean, you could certainly look at it a whole bunch of different ways, but if it was to fly in 2024, for instance, that would certainly help. We've been all wondering if Artemis III was going to be able to fly anywhere near close to the 2025 target. If it was to fly if Dear Moon was to fly that soon, that would certainly improve, I think, everybody's outlook on that schedule.
There we go. And one final question here from Outdoorsman, and this is definitely for all of us, is asking, for everyone on stream, what is something you see or have seen on the capsule that you found interesting or didn't expect? And I can actually give it to you right now. It's what we're looking at here. It's that you can see the different TPS tile applications on the conical part of the capsule structure. What I honestly wasn't expecting was those two gigantic black squares on the back of it. I kind of, the heat shield overall kind of, at least the tiles on the heat shield at least look about what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting the base heat shield to look kind of like it does too. That's not to say they're not doing analysis. That's not to say they're not looking at things. But I mean, overall, what surprises me most is, yeah, it's charred. But I mean, it encountered 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit worth of temperatures as it was coming back into the atmosphere. And honestly, the thing that surprised me most is how good it looks.
Yeah, it came in at what, Mach 35? Like that's
Yeah.
utter madness. That's just, dare I say, that is bonkies.
Bonkies, yes.
Right.
But
to answer the
that's
question,
neat.
I didn't expect to see the numbers on the tiles. I knew the tiles had numbering. I did not expect to even get remotely close enough to be able to like look at an individual tile's number. It's just so cool. And then I'll post some photos on Twitter in a little bit here once we're done with the live camera stuff. The ablating around the windows and whatever that like silver like tape material that was there, it's like silvery gold. It's like that whatever that look is when metal or metallicized things like heat up and sort of start to change color. There's a fancy term for it. I always forget what it is, but it's just beautiful. It's just absolutely a beautiful sight to see something that has gone to space, gone around the moon, come back, and done the work, taken the beating. It's the best spacecraft is a used spacecraft. I think we can all agree.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the thing I was not expecting necessarily was that Jack was going to be able to get this close.
There you go, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, just a greater Artemis I mission. I thought it was really cool how they had that internal iPad that was mounted and got some camera views from that, and just got some really cool inside views, and just all the views of the mission were absolutely crazy. I had the opportunity when we were up at JST Chris to talk with a guy who was running the cameras, clicking the record and record and receiving the data down from them, and it's just kind of cool to see those amazing views of the Earth hiding behind the moon and peeping out from behind it, and this was a really inspiring mission that just opens a new frontier to the new space. This is amazing. Our generation is going back.
It really is. And yes, we are. We are going back, right? Yes, indeed. All right. And James Sherries, thank you so much for the support there. Stand by. On that one, but thank you everyone for joining us today for the Orion return to San Diego. Jack, I'm going to start the farewells with you, Jack, and I'm going to give you time to unmute your microphone so that I know you're standing there.
Yep.
Yes, you are. But Jack, thank you so much because, we sort of thought you were going to go and get B-roll. There wasn't a lot of like, oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be this, there's going to be a signal. And then you just arrived and they took you like 5 feet away from it and said, go ahead, do a live shot. So what was that like? Just thank you so much for rolling out today, Jack. But this had to be an incredible experience for you as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I could be a broken record here. I'm sure you guys have all heard me say it before. But I really just can't say it enough that I feel so absolutely fortunate to get to do what I do, and so absolutely fortunate that we as a team get to bring this sort of thing to everybody live. Like, it's one thing to take some photos and post them up on Twitter. I love doing that. It's another thing to like get to be here in person. Of course, I love doing that. But the most fun thing of all is to get to share this stuff with everybody as it happens. Like, as I'm seeing it, you're seeing it. Like, it's just the coolest thing. Sometimes the future can be pretty darn awesome. And just my heartfelt thanks to everybody for tuning in and for allowing us to do what we do, via your support. And on that note, I will say I do have a Patreon. If you want to check out my Patreon, I'm trying to be better about posting content there. But I'll tweet a couple photos. I'll post up a couple photos. We'll have some on the NASA Spaceflight forums, and then there'll be some stuff that I'll just post on my Patreon only for whatever reason. Maybe it's not like the best photo, the best lit photo, or whatever, but I think it's cool because it shows some detail or something. But phone backgrounds, computer backgrounds, stuff like that. If you want, I would appreciate the support. Land Rover is getting a bunch of extra work lately, so So that's a thing. But it got me here great. It got me here fine, and it'll get me home fine, and it'll get me up to Vandenberg later this week fine. So all is right in the world. Toasty spacecraft back into San Diego safe. Thank you everybody for watching. I'll shut up now. But seriously, thank you everybody, and thank you NSF team for being game for this. It's pretty run and gun there. So thank you.
Yes, it was. And also for members, we will have some special members photo and content for you as well of this event from Jack a little later here today, as well as part of the perks of our membership program. But before we wrap up, I want to also remind everyone who's watching this that if you want even more Orion goodness and heat shield questions and goodies, that you will want to be watching the YouTube channel here on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, where NSF and the Intrepid Museum, the Astro Live show this coming Saturday, will have Barry Bonzak, who is he is the Orion spacecraft production planner for the thermal protection system. You know, that thing that did its job and protected Orion. And Barry, I've met him several times. He's a really cool guy. He's a wonderful font of information. So definitely earmark that for Sunday, December 18th at 3 p.m. Eastern for a talk with one of the people partially responsible for the heat shield on Orion. And with that, that is going to do it for this this stand-up live stream of Orion's return to San Diego inside of the USS Portland. Going down, I am Chris Gebhardt. I am the assistant managing editor for NASASpaceflight, and I was your host for our stream here today. Thank you all for joining us. Joining me on commentary as well for part of this was, of course, Jack Beyer. Jack, thank you so much for rolling out there and bringing us this epic stream.
Keep supporting this and keep doing what you guys do, watching the streams, hitting the thumbs up button, all that stuff, you know, the YouTube spiel. Keep doing that. We'll keep doing cool stuff like this. Thank you, everybody.
Indeed. Also joining us on comms for a little bit here was Mr. Nick Answeeney from one mega moon rocket to the other. Nick, thank you so much for hopping on and helping out here.
Thanks for having me, and I did just talk to Ship 15, and Ship 15 is glad that Artemis I is toasty.
There we go. Yes. And behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and making all the photons flow to you was Patrick, our wonderful operator and producer here today. Thank you very much for all of your work as well there, Patrick. And also, he's not here right now. He did have to run, but Das, the robot army wrangler, was also here at the beginning of our stream. So thank you very much to Das as well for helping Jack get everything set up and checked out so we could go live and bring this to you. And finally, last but certainly not least, Mr. SLS himself, Philip. Thank you so much for joining us, and what a moment this must be for you two, having, like me, followed this for its inception from the Constellation program through to it being back on its first flight. What a journey it has been.
Yeah, it certainly has been. And, you know, again, thanks to Jack for being out there and you know, taking advantage of this opportunity and being ready to do that. That was really cool.
Very much so. So with that, you know the deal. We will be streaming launches and stuff coming up here later this week. There are several on tap, so do make sure that notification button is on if it's not already from YouTube. We promise we don't spam you. We only go live when there are cool, awesome things to see like this. So we will see you all later, nerds.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good. Throttling up.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight SC off. Bring in SC off.
Yikes. You bet. concur. We don't need any more of these.